This part of Pennsylvania is covered in a whole lot of different sandstones. I'm here on Montour Ridge. This is where I grew up. This is where I live now. And I thought I'd make a real quick video on what I know about working with stone. I am far from an expert. There are some real experts out there. I am not one. But I'm going to give it my best shot and demonstrate some of the mason tools I've picked up over the years and how you can cut stone. The reason I thought this might be of interest to folks is there's a lot of great stone houses, stone foundations in our area, and that didn't just happen by accident. Here on Montour Ridge, there's really two very useful sandstones. One is called Tuscarora sandstone, and it is just all over the woods behind me. It tends to have a grayish color. Okay, if I were to break this open, sometimes it's a little bit more like a red color inside. Okay, that's Tuscarora sandstone, and this is very, very common on Montour Ridge. When you get closer into Mahoning Gap and Danville, though, you get a lot of the block ore, the iron ore of Danville. That's like a purple sandstone, and that's part of the Clinton Formation and the Silurian Formation. So both of those are going to be very useful for building homes and barns and foundations. And so what I'm going to do today is come out here in the woods. We're going to try and pick a really good stone, and I'm going to demonstrate some stone cutting techniques. But in the process, I'm also going to be making a birthday present for my sister, Cleo. I'm not allowed to say how old she is. I will just say turning half a century is a big deal. And so I thought it'd be pretty cool to get a big piece of quartz, or not quartzite, but sandstone off the ridge here. And I'm going to chisel her house number, her address, into the stone and give that to her for her birthday. A little piece of Montour Ridge to mark her house number. Now, if Montour County goes changing our numbers again for address changes, I'm going to be pretty mad because I'm going to be putting a lot of work into this stone. All right, so let's pick some good rocks. I'll show you what we got to choose from. All right, some pretty good size stone here. I like some of that. This is all that Tuscarora sandstone out here. And I really liked over here at the base of this tree. This guy looks pretty good. This is a nice piece. Should give us a good surface to work with here. Now I want to be really careful because what I see growing here is sarsaparilla root and possibly ginseng. I got to be very careful that's not ginseng. Ginseng is a very special plant, and I tell you what, because this might be ginseng, I'm going to be real careful about disturbing this site. And I'm also going to be real careful about telling anybody where this site is because I don't want you coming out here and digging it. All right, let's get to work trying to move some stones, and we'll pick back up with the tools. All right, we lucked out. No rattlesnakes, no ground hornets. So I don't know what the bottom's going to look like. We'll flip it over and check it out. I might as well take this moss off and put it back in the woods because it's not going to live on wherever I take this. But in the old days, this would have been a horse or mule-drawn wagon, but my John Deere is going to have to do the job today. A little bit easier. Here in Montour County, there were several historic sources of sandstone in the area. There were places where people actually quarried sandstone for building purposes right out of the mountains around here. One of the sites I recently got to see was thanks to my friend Blair Carbaugh. He took me out in the woods and showed me a place in Riverside up in the mountains where they actually quarried building stone right out of the mountain there, and you could see it clear as day. Another source, by the time the iron ore mines were running in Montour County, so by the 1830s, there were a lot of piles of waste, what were called tailings. And some of the tailings, especially if they were mining what's called the block ore, that was great for building stone. I'll show you some specimens of that, and you'll see why it's so great for building. I mean, it's like geometrically shaped blocks when it comes right out of the ground after you blast. I've never seen record that the companies charged anybody to come get rock off their tailing piles. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if they did come up with some kind of a payment system, but I have no record of that. All I know is many of the stone houses you see around Danville and the stone foundations, when you're seeing that orange and purple sandstone, there's no doubt in my mind a lot of those came from the waste pits from the mines. So the miners would dump the stuff that wasn't high-grade ore, and then people would come later with wagons and load it and take it off for construction. But a third source for construction stone would be these agricultural dumps. So what you have behind me, this is on my land, these are places where the previous landowner must have tried to farm. And if I spin around, you'll see behind me is a clearing where my neighbor Darla lives. And my guess is when they were trying to break that in as a farm, maybe a pasture, maybe even to plow it, they were dumping stones out of the field, and this is where they dumped them. So this is garbage to the farmer, but in some cases people came back and they utilized these dump pits as a source for construction stone. All right, a quick run through of some of these tools. Okay, a small sledgehammer, a couple pounds. This is like single hand. Two-hand sledgehammer. Okay, you're gonna need those. And then for drilling holes, which I don't plan to do today, this is a star bit drill. Pretty short one. And this is actually the same style they would have used in the iron ore mines around here. A little longer. It would have needed to be at least 3 or 4 feet long. But this would be for drilling holes and then usually putting in your black powder or years later dynamite to blast rock. But once you have workable pieces like you see here, that's when these other tools come in. Now this is a mason's hammer. This is a pretty specific shape. You'll notice the end is not for mashing. In fact, it's got a pretty clean edge. I'll show you how to cut. This is for cutting stone. This edge I'm touching right here, that cuts stone, and I'll demonstrate it. The backside is for dressing the stone and cleaning it up a little bit. All these different chisels and tools I have are to be driven with one of these hammers typically, not with this hammer. This is one of my favorites. I'll explain why. I can usually get some pretty nice cuts with that. And then the ones that have almost like a round shape like that, this is what I'm going to use to cut my sister's address into the stone. It's really good for gouging out like a hole. And then these are just various cutting edges. And my guess is this one came from my dad's tool collection. I don't know how I got it. Probably I borrowed it and never returned it. But the way I know is Dad paints all his tools orange so that if he drops it, he sees it laying in the grass. So, all right, so this is my amateur collection of mason tools. I'll try and demonstrate some basic cutting for you now. Okay, I'm going to pick up with, I'm skipping over the mining and quarrying. I'm going to get right to like, assuming we already have chunks of sandstone to work with. Okay, that's kind of where we're going to pick up. And I am going to break historical accuracy, and I'm going to put on some safety goggles because you can really mess your eyes up with stonework. So I mentioned that this specific hammer was for cutting, and I want to demonstrate that because it's really an amazing tool. I have Randy Brendel to thank for teaching me what little I know about stone work. Randy grew up in Berks County, and his father used to be an iron ore miner through the 1970s. He worked in the Grace Mines. That was part of the Bethlehem Steel Corporation. And his dad and his whole family knew all there was to know about working with stone and rock. And I worked for Randy doing some landscaping and rock wall work. I guess that was in the early 2000s. And Randy was the first person to ever give me a rock hammer and show me how to use it. So I'm going to give you my best amateur demonstration on how to cut. So for example, you know, I have a piece of sandstone here. If I want to try and just cut off that corner, when I hit it, I'm going to try and hit with just a slight turn like that so that just this edge is going to catch it. See that? Not the prettiest cut, but allowed me to cut it off. Here, we'll go over here now. So let's say we want to cut. This isn't for anything other than demonstration right now, but I drew a little line there. Let's say we want to cut that. Not too bad. I mean, it's not surgery, but you can get a pretty straight edge just using that mason's hammer. All right, let me show you the block ore. I mentioned that Danville also has this purple and orange sandstone. Here it is. If I can get it in the sun just right. See those purple colors that are going to be very familiar to those of you from the Danville area because this stone is all over the place. Can you see how it has these flat, in geology they're called cleavage planes. That's not man-made. This came right out of the ground like that. This is mostly silicon dioxide, but it must have some calcite in it as well because the calcite is what's going to give you those cleavage planes at those angles. And so this block ore coming right out of the mines. Now this particular example I believe is high enough grade iron ore. This would have gone to a furnace. I picked this one up I don't remember where I got it, but I picked it up and added it to my collection because it's high enough in iron ore. I considered it iron ore. So I take that piece into schools and stuff sometimes. But here's another piece. Isn't it wild how you get that? You see how flat that surface is? So no one made this. No one cracked or shaped this. This came right out of the ground, broken into pieces like that. And so that's why the block ore is really, really desirable. This is a really cool chisel. I don't know that I'm going to be demonstrating exactly the way it's meant to be used, but I'll show you how I use it and how it works for me. Okay, I'm going to try and cut across this guy. Not a terribly thick stone, but I'm going to try and cut, and we'll make this guy square. And so I'm going to take this chisel here, and I'm going to just start tapping with this hammer, not my rock hammer. I'm just going to start tapping in here, not too aggressive. And I'll pause and just say, you see all that dust? That stuff is so dangerous. You know, not for me just doing this for a little bit, but if you did this for a living, you can get silicosis of the lungs, basically miner's lung, bad stuff. Not bad. I really like the hammer. You know, you get some good practice in with this, and it's really effective. You know, so for example, let's try and correct this guy. We had this guy break out on us. If I still want to try and salvage this into a square piece, I'm going to come at it from the top in this case. And you can get an acceptable cut for what we're doing today. Now if I needed to finish that off, put it upright like this and start coming at it with the chisels. Right, and you can start dressing the face, so to speak. All right, I really like the surface I have to work with here. So this is going to be for my sister, and I think, I mean, it's a good 8-9 inches thick at the base, so that should allow it to be upright. It'll probably be buried. My sister's house is 121. Okay, the tool I'm going to use. I really like this guy for starters. Just kind of what the point looks like. And I'm going to chisel away from myself and see how she cuts.
Hey, Mr. Mason, cut me some stone. Gonna build a wall so I can be alone. Keep the world on the outside, keep me in. I don't want no one to see the shape I'm in.
All right, I've been hammering now on this one for going on half an hour. And still got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. Masonry is not a hobby or trade for someone without patience.
Nobody here but me alone. Take your chisel and hammer in your hand. Cut me a block as quick as you can. There's plenty of sandstone on the edge of the field. Just grab some river mud to point and seal. On my own, to moan and groan, hard as stone in my tone alone. You can call me a grouch, but I am in and you are out of my wall.